What's going on, YouTube? Good afternoon and Happy New Year if you're watching this after a New Year's Eve, which it was tonight, based on when I'm recording this. So, during the holiday season, I bought myself an autofocus lens and an off-camera microphone so that hopefully I can deliver you some more interesting camera and photography videos and have the option to have different camera angles and stuff like this, so I don't have to sit behind the camera and focus the lens. I finally have an autofocus lens, so hopefully this turns out alright. Anyways, I'd like to thank you all for your interest in my few camera related videos on my just starting up YouTube channel. And my goal for 2016 is to do at least one video a week and put at least a decent amount of content into it, maybe about 10 minutes or so. And we'll do everything from darkroom printing, because I finally have a solution, I think, to setting up a darkroom inside my apartment here, and as well as film and other camera things, just like hopefully you guys want. And today though, since it is New Year's, there's one specific little topic I wanted to talk about, and it's unfortunately what we lost in 2015 in terms of analog photography. So I have here my two Holgas, because unfortunately Holga announced this year that they had stopped producing cameras. And I have my two Voigtlanders, because Voigtlander also announced that they were no longer making cameras, but they are going to keep making lenses. So I'd like to kind of share a little bit of my feelings on both of these series of cameras, which I think have been quite important over the past 10 to 15 years as analog photography has declined. Alright, so here we've got the four cameras all laid out, and really it's sad to me on both levels, because the Holga was kind of one of the first cameras, analog cameras, that I got and that I really started to love. And the Voigtlander cameras kind of came later. In fact, I didn't buy my first Voigtlander camera until this year. And I've really been taken by them and the quality of the lenses and just how the cameras feel. So I'm really disappointed about both of these. But first, let's just talk about the Holga in the history there. So essentially, and by the way, this info is coming from this really cool book I have called Camera Crazy. And in it, there's an interview with the inventor of the Holga camera, Mr. T.M. Lee. And just to paraphrase, basically, he invented the Holga camera in the mid-1980s in order to cater to the mainland Chinese market, to come up with the cheapest film camera they possibly could. And the original Holga actually had a flash. And you may not think of the Holga cameras as very innovative, but actually the Holga with the electronic flash was the first 120 film camera to have a built-in electronic flash. Though of course that probably had more to do with the fact it was the 1980s and no one else was shooting a medium format except the pros at that point. But in any case, he obviously didn't expect his little 120 cheap cameras to take off. But really, it kind of coincided with the movement in photography of kind of shying away from professional gear, and the idea that having the professional gear doesn't necessarily make you a better photographer. And when people started shooting and attempting to use these Holga cameras in professional situations, street photography, model shoots, etc., it actually turned out to be a quite popular look, that blurry, unexpected look. The fact that you have a cheap lens on the professional larger formats of film, those things actually were what made the Holga camera take off. And you can see here, as is said in this interview in this book, that he continued to listen to the fans of Holga to produce the different versions, like the twin lens reflex, and to produce the funny colors. So certainly a bit more of a successful camera operation than you might expect. And of course, this year when they announced they were being discontinued, I was very disappointed, especially since they kind of pulled a Polaroid in the sense that by the time they announced they were done manufacturing them, they had already destroyed all the components, all the plastic molds and things to make them. So there was really no opportunity for someone else to buy the manufacturing equipment and keep making them. They just wanted to be done with making them. And that's a pretty bold move. But anyways, really both the Holgas and the Voigtlanders, to lesser extents, are kind of known for their controversy. There's three types of people I see complaining about the Holgas. There's the people who don't like the lo-fi images. There's those that really are like hardcore digital shooters, and they're kind of upset that a camera like this even is still manufactured and that people buy it. And of course there are those that think that only hipsters buy Holgas. Of course, really none of these are true. I mean, some of the greatest photographers have done successful gallery shows shooting Holgas and other similarly crappy cameras. And really, the Holgas have had a lot of influence on modern photography. Look at the square format of Instagram. Look at film simulations. Look at the fact that every digital camera has like a toy camera setting as one of the shooting modes. The look is definitely something that appeals to people, both people who shoot it and people who look at the images. So it's really hard to really diss the camera, especially since they were cheap and they were disposable, really. I mean, now that I think about it, what I really liked about the Holgas is they're so cheap and they're so poorly built that you're not afraid to use it. The last thing you want is a camera that you paid so much money for that you're afraid to take it out shooting in the snow, in the rain, or whatever. Because these are basically disposable cameras, you're emboldened to shoot with it all the time, everywhere. And because there's not a lot of settings and things to play with in the camera itself, you're forced to do crazy things with your composition and with your methods of taking the images, which I think was what caused a lot of the art that came out of people shooting Holgas to be so interesting. It's that it forces people to get out of their comfort zone when they take photos. Of course, with the Holgas, they're quite simple, so hopefully for many years to come, you'll still be able to find and buy the Holga cameras. And then second on our list are the Voigtlander cameras. And these are controversial for a completely different reason. It's because they're actually not made by Voigtlander in Germany. The official Voigtlander company, as it's considered, has pretty much been out of business and just a brand passed around between various holding firms, really since about the 1960s. These are actually made by the Cosina camera company in Japan. Cosina is well known for making cameras for other manufacturers. They're basically an outsourcing firm. But Mr. Kobayashi, who is the president of the Cosina company, decided about 15 years ago that he wanted to make his own cameras. And Mr. Kobayashi, unlike Mr. Lee of Holga, who was just a businessman, and even in this interview he talks about not being interested in taking photos himself, Mr. Kobayashi of Cosina is a photographer. And so when he thought about what kind of cameras he wanted to make, he thought about what cameras he wanted to use. And he was primarily a Leica shooter. So he decided to make an affordable series of rangefinder cameras and a whole new series of lenses. Especially these are for the Leica thread mount. And there hasn't been new lenses built for the Leica thread mount in over 30 years. So really the Cosina under the Voigtlander name kind of brought back a lot of historic photography, because you could shoot these modern lenses on your old Leica 3 from World War II, which was quite cool. And he also talks about, I have an interview here translated from a Japanese magazine, And Mr. Kobayashi also mentions listening to feedback from shooters and also listening to kind of what he felt was missing in the Leica lineup. He built specific focal lengths and specific lenses that he felt weren't available anywhere in the Leica system. So while you could probably get upset for them kind of hijacking the Voigtlander name, I mean, they could have easily just put Cosina on these cameras. And as you can see here, they actually hijacked the brand heritage of Voigtlander, since Voigtlander actually started as a company in 1756, making it the world's oldest camera company. Again, even though he kind of hijacked the name, you can kind of overlook that with the fact that he didn't just hijack the Voigtlander name to make cheap stuff. He took the Voigtlander name and made cameras and lenses that I think should be proud to have the badge Voigtlander on them, because they're different. Voigtlander was always like that other German camera firm, kind of competing with Leica, but not really. So it's kind of cool to have, you know, that a little bit of that competition back for just a few years there, maybe only about a decade in the 2000s, where you could have a Leica M-mount rangefinder camera, or you could have a Voigtlander M-mount rangefinder camera. Also, I think the fact that Cosina / Voigtlander insisted that all of their lenses be of the highest quality, mechanical, none of them autofocus, all of them having aperture rings on the lens, I think that actually has had quite an influence on modern photography. You see forums all over the place now about adapting these lenses and other old school lenses to Sony NEX cameras, Micro Four Thirds cameras, etc. So there's certainly a lot of legacy to what Voigtlander has done with making lenses that are interesting and lenses that are fully mechanical and manual in the vogue again with shooters of both digital and film cameras. Now, while I've been raving about their lenses here, and I certainly enjoy the camera bodies, they certainly weren't much to write home about. They're quite simple, and in some ways not that well built. For example, this Bessa T is actually made out of plastic. Once they got to the Bessa R series, they finally did make them out of metal. But really, I enjoy the cameras, but I don't think many people did. I suspect they sold a lot more lenses than cameras. I don't know if you can see it, but somehow, again, I bought all this equipment used. But right there above the Cosina, it gives the serial number. And for some reason, my serial number is 0000541. So somehow I got the 541st Bessa T camera. And honestly, I don't know where the serial number is on this R3A, but this grip has its own serial number, and I have 00002031. So I got the 2000th grip. It seems really strange because obviously I got all of these used, so they're all from random production dates. But it seems, based on those serial numbers, that maybe the cameras themselves weren't that popular. And truly, I know a lot of people who have never heard of the Voigtlander name. So it's quite a shame that now that they're announcing the discontinuation of their cameras, there's not going to be many people lamenting that. There aren't many people who knew why we should be sad that Voigtlander is kind of discontinuing their film cameras again. Of course, there's certainly opportunity in the future for Cosina or another company to license the Voigtlander name again. But with the way the market's looking, I think there's just too many used film cameras available on the market. And really, in their own ways, I'm going to miss all four of these cameras. And certainly, if you're an eBay person, you should be looking to see if you can get any of these cameras now before they become collector's items. Right, so if you are going to be buying one of these cameras on eBay or something, or new, to try to get one before they're completely gone. I cannot stress enough to please shoot it. Both Mr. Lee and Mr. Kobayashi stressed in all of their interviews and things that they're excited that their cameras are fun and easy to use. So really the best thing you can do to share the legacy of both of these interesting camera companies is to keep shooting them and keep talking about them. And on that note, I'm going to be, as you probably saw earlier, I have this one already loaded up with high ISO film, this Holga. And I've got my R3A with the super wide aperture lens. So I'm going to be taking both of these out to be shooting tonight at our city's downtown shooting at our city's downtown New Year's Eve celebration. So please have fun in the new year. Of course, keep shooting film and keep shooting awesome cameras and spreading the word of analog photography. And thank you for watching this video / rant about long lost cameras. See you in the new year, everyone.